this sentence is entirely appropriate and sends out the right message?
Really, I expect people who've committed serious crimes to get serious sentences and to serve a long time in prison, and I hope that will happen for those who organised the riots or committed violent acts. And I think the sentences for the people who use Facebook to try and incite a riot may be appropriate, and we will see whether one of the appeals is successful in relation to those cases. But I think what is also clear is that there have been a number of people who've committed petty offences, so for instance taking a bottle of soft drink or a packet of chewing gum, who are receiving prison sentences. And I do question whether that is effective, particularly as the Ministry of Justice's own evidence shows that short-term prison sentences are very ineffective at reducing reoffending, whereas community sentences, if properly supervised, are more effective at cutting reoffending, and of course that ensures that there are fewer victims in the future.
David Davis, Tom Brakes mentioned there some other sentences which he suggests are disproportionate. Isn't this the only way we're going to ensure that this kind of thing doesn't happen again? We're not going to see violence on our streets on a par of last week.
Yes, and that's why I said that severe crimes should receive severe sentences. But I think David Davies has identified the problem here. He has just said that we should not pay attention, or we should disregard, the Ministry of Justice evidence which shows that short-term prison sentences are less effective at reducing reoffending than community sentences. And surely that is what we should be in the business of doing, making sure that people who've committed a crime have a reduced chance of reoffending in the future. And that is, in my view, the right approach, and that's why I think we should put much more emphasis on restorative justice, which again, interestingly, actually is much more effective from a victim's point of view, because they feel that the culprit has had to apologise, has had to explain to them, often has had to do community payback to restore the damage that they have done. So actually, I think we should look at the evidence, and we should look at the evidence of what's effective.
David Davis, you wanted to come in there?
Well, just to say that, I don't accept these figures at all. In fact, they show that there are very highly community sentences. We could spend hours arguing this, and Tom and I have spent hours arguing in the House of Commons. One of the reasons why there's a slightly lower reoffending rate for people on community sentences is that they tend to be first-time offenders, and some of them will actually stop offending as a result of going before a court. I think that what we had here isn't something that we can use as a precedent. It was unprecedented levels of violence, and it's right that we send out a message that we're not, as a society, prepared to allow that sort of anarchy and chaos on our streets. And whether or not people are stealing chewing gum or setting fire to buildings, they're all part of the same thing, and need to be treated accordingly.
So, David Davis, you dismiss the idea of restorative justice, which we heard about from Nick Clegg yesterday. You think that just doesn't work and isn't effective?
No, I think there's a place for it, but what I really think is that I've heard a lot this morning from the Howard League for Penal Reform and others about the human rights of rioters, and I'm a bit fed up with it. I think it's about time we heard a bit less about the human rights of rioting violent mobs and a bit more about the human rights of people living in shops above houses above shops, or going to work on buses whose lives were turned.
Davis, Tom Brake, thanks very much for debating that issue, whether these are the right sentences, as people are sentenced now for their actions in these riots last week. Thank you.